Is there anything that you want us to know going into The Last Jedi? Anything you want to tell the audience or the world about this one in comparison to the other ones?
It's the longest one.
I've never seen Star Wars. I know, right? It's 2017. How could I have not seen this classic trilogy? With its iconic characters, sci-fi tech, its memorable lines, and its merchandising that's fucking everywhere. But yeah, I haven't seen Star Wars. I just never felt the urge to clear out a whole day to see this franchise. Until now. I work a job where I take care of special needs kids, and I was basically paid to go see The Last Jedi with said kids. I went into The Last Jedi with the only Star Wars knowledge being from The Force Awakens. I went to watch The Last Jedi, and my first impressions of the film was that it was a fine sci-fi movie. But when I got home to see what people were saying about this film, I was incredibly surprised to see Star Wars fans hating this movie. When I say Star Wars fans, I'm referring to the fans who love this franchise and are rationally being critical of The Last Jedi, not people who are asking for Rian Johnson to admit he made a terrible film, or people who are saying SJWs ruined this movie. I'm referring to reasonable people. These type of people are actually worse than overly passionate anime fans. But this got me interested. Like I said, I thought it was fine. But my friend had a good point where I can't really criticize the movie completely because I haven't seen the original trilogy, so I don't really get everything that's going on. I thought, you know what? Maybe I could provide an interesting perspective for The Last Jedi. Someone who hasn't grown up with the original trilogy and can't be blinded by nostalgia. I sat down and I watched Star Wars: A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. After watching all of them, I gotta say, yeah, I've been missing out. These are good. these are some solid blockbusters. In fact, I can now understand the love for these films. Cool space battles, the Force, light versus dark, and probably my favorite thing about these films is how great the practical effects are, which still hold up pretty well today. When I finished these films, I just kind of thought about how amazing it must have been for an audience to have seen these movies during their time. I mean, yeah, not everything completely holds up. ADR is a little inconsistent, dialogue can be silly, some costume designs are just like ridiculous. Is this guy wearing a bucket on his head? What is this hat? And the worst thing that doesn't hold up even with its re-edited releases is probably the CGI. Other than that, these are still some incredible films, and I can only imagine how revolutionary they were. After experiencing the original trilogy and getting familiar with Han, Leia, Luke, and everything that matters for me to objectively look at The Last Jedi, I was ready to see the film again. When I first watched The Last Jedi, I could see the movie had problems. I couldn't judge everything on a story perspective because I wasn't sure how everything worked in this universe, but I could tell that the movie's pacing was weird, strange editing choices, its out of place humor, and my god, the length of the movie. On a second viewing, my conclusion of The Last Jedi is still the same. It's a fine sci-fi movie, but it's a terrible Star Wars film. The Force Awakens sets up all these interesting plot threads only for The Last Jedi to throw it all away. Let me start with my biggest problem. Luke's character is disrespectfully written in this movie. Luke isn't the most interesting hero character that cinema has to offer, but he is still very likable, and he went through some great trials and some great character development from becoming just a farmer boy to a Jedi master. But in The Last Jedi, here he drinks in front of Rey, which is essentially in front of the audience. He almost kills his nephew, bitter old man now, and just has an unsatisfying death at the end. Rey puts her hand out to give Luke the lightsaber, and Luke comically tosses it over his shoulder, then asks her to go away. This type of subversion of expectation is throughout the whole movie, but it legitimately feels more like a troll or a "I gotcha" moment. I know Luke regretted the thought of killing Kylo, but for him to just have his lightsaber out and look like he's about to kill Kylo, for that to be the main reason Kylo went off to the dark side and for Luke to hermit himself on this island is just really stupid to me.
The end of Return of the Jedi to when we meet him now in The Last Jedi.
That's the mystery of the ages. Since it's no longer my story and there's a new protagonist, I had to try and fill in that for myself. It's not important to the story, but it is for the actor to try and figure out, who is this guy? How did the most optimistic, hopeful character in the galaxy turn into this hermit who says it's time for the Jedi to end? I read that and I said, what? I mean, that's not what a Jedi does. I mean, a Jedi is optimistic. A Jedi has tenacity. He never gives up. He doesn't secrete himself on an island. But you'll see. I mean, the wait for 8 is nearly over.
Luke says he came to this island to die, yet he left a map in the last movie. Now, let me actually try going through the movie from beginning to end and just name off how this film kind of just fucks up the Star Wars universe. And also, don't tell me this shit is explained in a book somewhere. That is an excuse for the film to not include it in its own story. At the start of the film, which is where the audience can get a clear indication of what they should be expecting. And all seriousness is just like thrown out the window because Poe calls the commander of the First Order ship and just does a "your mama" joke. I'm going to blame Disney here because this feels very much like Marvel's humor. Almost like a Disney executive said, hey, people love the comedy in our Marvel department, put that humor in Star Wars. This humor does not work in this movie. Listen, I'm not saying Star Wars doesn't have humor because it does in the original trilogy, but in the original trilogy, the humor felt human. While here in The Last Jedi, it feels forced. If you laughed at that joke, then you'll probably enjoy this movie. I think the only joke that I genuinely laughed at was the scene where Luke tickled Rey's hand with a leaf, saying it was the Force. Poe goes 1v1 with a giant First Order ship that apparently can't kill him because Poe's ship is too close? I'm pretty sure that's never been a problem before. After Poe buys the rebels enough time, Leia asks him to retreat, and Poe basically does a mutiny and basically gets several people killed trying to take out this ship. This sequence with the bomber ship, it doesn't make any sense either. All the bomber ships except for this one with the Asian chick have just been destroyed. And to drop the bombs from this bomber ship, you have to press this switch. This Asian chick like fell down and like got knocked out, and she's trying to get the switch from the top of the ladder by just kicking the ladder. Only one problem with this. She's fucking exposed to space. How isn't she dying? Oh, I guess space decided to stop working because, gravity isn't really a thing because she kicks the ladder and the button falls and so do the bombs. See, when I first saw this scene, I thought maybe like there was some explanation for this in like the original trilogy about maybe space working differently or something, or maybe there's like just something on the ship that like I could be mentioned in the trilogy that just could maybe explain this. But no, there's no such mentioning of this, and this scene is just really, really stupid. I think everyone who went into this movie went in expecting Princess Leia to die, since Carrie Fisher unfortunately passed away earlier this year. In one scene, I thought that was what the movie was going to do. The First Order finds Leia's, I think it's called the bridge ship, or whatever. They destroy the ship that Leia's on, and Leia is in space, surely about to die. Until she uses the Force and Mary Poppins to safety. I get that Leia is a Skywalker and can use the Force like Luke. In fact, I always actually wondered why I never saw the Jedi utilizing the Force in this way before, but we've never seen Leia use the Force to this extent before, and the movie never mentions her having any training. This scene is also just kind of awkward and honestly kind of hysterical. Leia flies to safety, and here's where there's cutting away from something that needs an explanation. They open the door to let Leia in, which by doing so, space should consume them, but space tends to not work correctly, so okay. Earlier in the film, the movie does another cutaway moment that was not a good idea, and it's when Luke is in his little hut and Rey and Chewbacca come in, bursting in, going like, hey, you need to come back with us, and then Luke's like, hey, where's Han? And then the movie just cuts away from that. Like, cuts away from his reaction knowing that Han died. Like, what? Like, you don't think we would want to know that? And people are wondering why fans are upset. Finn wakes up from his coma from the last film, the film where he was like lightsabered in the back. Yeah, I guess he just wakes up and is fine now. A new character gets introduced, and fans of this franchise are calling her the new Jar Jar. I haven't seen the prequels, so I don't know how accurate this is, but yeah, Rose is terrible. You could remove Rose from the movie and this film would be a lot better. Actually, you could do that with a lot of characters in this movie. We learn that Kylo and Rey are communicating through the Force, which is pretty cool, pretty interesting. Then the movie just cuts back to Finn and Rose's, side plot on the casino planet or whatever, and it just sucks. All it does is tell us that Rose was once a slave, and she gives a social commentary about how people benefit from war. One thing I found hilarious though is that Finn and Rose saved like the horse alien animals that were being abused for like entertainment, but they don't save the slave children. Like, there's even a part where Rose unleashes, like, the last horse alien and says, now this adventure was worth it. That is just unintentionally, like, hilarious. Last thing about Rose, so I don't have to talk about her anymore. The reason most fans are upset with this character is because of this really, really dumb scene at the end of the film, where Finn is about to do like this whole self-sacrificing hero thing and like kamikaze into this giant laser that's about to kill the rest of the resistance. But Rose decides to crash into Finn's ship to stop him from sacrificing himself from saving everyone. Rose crashes their ships, which could have easily killed them both, and proclaims, we're not going to win by fighting the things we hate, but rather saving the things we love. What the fuck is this? This is the dumbest moment in this whole film. First of all, Rose, weren't you going on about how proud you were of your sister for sacrificing herself earlier in the film? Saving the ones we love. Isn't Finn's love for saving the rest of the people in the Resistance like exactly why he was about to have this only thing of a character moment in this entire movie, that he was about to do the exact same thing that you're preaching here? Not fighting the things we hate? Rose? Star Wars would not work by this logic. I don't think any movie could actually work with this logic. Then Rose kisses Finn, and it's really awkward. Like I actually cringed. No, these characters had no resemblance of like a romantic chemistry between these two. Like this is just... All right, let's see what else happens in this movie that was disappointing. Snoke easily dies in a scene that's just very reminiscent of Return of the Jedi. Phasma is defeated and I assume is dead. That was disappointing. Oh, there's this really dumb purple hair commander character that like doesn't tell like anyone of her plan, to the point that Poe publicly in front of like everyone overthrows her, which I think everyone was in agreement with. You know, a lot of this movie wouldn't have happened if the purple hair lady just explained herself. There's also this line that is like legitimately almost as dumb as the Rose line, where the purple hair lady and like Leia, like they take back control from Poe, and Leia stuns Poe, knocking him out, and he's like being cargoed on like unconsciously going onto the ship, and the purple hair lady is just like, he's a troublemaker. I like him. And Leia's like, me too. And it's like, didn't this guy like do a mutiny early in the film and basically got like several people killed? Like, I know you won that battle, but like this dude just like, no one knew that you were gonna win. He was just like, oh, we have a chance to take out this giant ship, and just you call in reinforcements and you kill him and like that stuff, and he like just overthrows. Like, there's like no repercussions for his actions, and you're just like, I like him. Like, okay. All right. There's still like several other issues in this film. The film feels like it goes through like two ending climaxes. Yoda, who is a Jedi ghost, can summon lightning apparently, which just adds a whole bunch of questions. Like, so can Jedi ghosts, like, can they fight? You know, like, is that a thing? That Yoda just summoned lightning. I mean, that would be very useful if he could do that in battle. At first, I thought the fans were overreacting about The Last Jedi, but they're really not. They honestly have every right to be pissed. This movie just fucks over its characters and fucks up the Star Wars canon. Rey, with minimal training with the Force, is able to fight off these like elite guards. Her standing her own in The Force Awakens against Kylo, that made sense because Kylo was injured. Rey is very much a Mary Sue character like Batman. She can just do all this stuff. Guys, I promise I'm looking at this objectively, but this film, story-wise, is just terrible. Okay, at least I can mention things the film does right. The acting is good. Everyone, I think, gave a great performance, especially Mark Hamill as Luke. And honestly, the thing I like the most about The Last Jedi is probably the color red. Red is my favorite color, and it's utilized here a lot, and I love that because there are some incredible shots. And honestly, this film overall just looks amazing. It's just a terrible story with all its retcons and just how it treats its characters that just bring the film down so low. Is there anywhere they can take this story from here? The kid at the end uses the Force to get the broom. I think everyone saw that. The most positive thing I can take away from this movie is I greatly respect Mark Hamill now. Look at interviews with him, he genuinely didn't agree with where Rian Johnson was taking Luke's character. The last thing I want to talk about is this. To all the fans out there, I get it. you love Star Wars. The original trilogy is a pop culture icon and has greatly affected your lives. And I agree, they're amazing films, but let's be honest. Disney is in no way going to make a better Star Wars movie than what George Lucas originally did. Disney didn't buy Star Wars because they had compelling stories they had to tell. They knew they could make a boatload of money off this franchise, and why wouldn't they? Disney is a business and was probably the only company that could actually afford Star Wars. Disney and all their different film departments, they make good movies. Sometimes even great movies, but I'm worried. Like I'm very, very worried. They just bought 20th Century Fox, and I don't just mean they got X-Men. They bought all of 20th Century Fox. Like I said, I'm not saying Disney makes bad movies, but if everyone is just going to be under the Disney umbrella, we're going to start losing the artist's vision to manufactured filmmaking. If Disney had bought 20th Century Fox a couple years ago, there's no way we would have gotten Deadpool or Logan. Disney is monopolizing the film industry, and you know what? Maybe Star Wars getting its bad rap by the audience is a good thing. This is just a prediction, but I think the movie industry is going to go through what the video game industry is going through, where people are going to get tired of the same shit over and over again by the big AAA studios pumping out the same thing every year, and eventually it's going to fall on the indie movie makers.
I hope people are happy. It seems like, because in Hollywood, remember kids, it's not important if it's of high quality. Only if it makes money.
Because when it comes down to the independent filmmakers, they're not making their movie for money. They're making it because they want to, and they passionately want to tell their stories. I guess that is a new hope.